It's time for the news.
Algeria has started delivering humanitarian aid to Libya following the storm that hit the neighboring country, killing thousands of people and injuring many others. In Libya, the government of national unity has declared a three-day national mourning following the floods that killed more than 3,000 people in the eastern part of the country. And the president of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, has had talks in New York with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the reactivation of the UN-sponsored peace process, among other things. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First in our news, the Council of Ministers today met under the chairmanship of the President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, to examine, among other things, the complementary law of finance and the preparations for the new academic year. More details will follow in our next editions. Algeria has taken note of the official response of Morocco, which expressed that it is not in need of the humanitarian aid offered by Algeria. A communique issued by the Algerian Foreign Ministry said that the Moroccan Ministry of Justice said it will accept Algeria's humanitarian aid if delivered in coordination with the Moroccan Foreign Ministry. Following the announcement of the Moroccan Ministry of Justice, the Algerian authorities ordered the allocation of 3 aircrafts to transport the civil protection rescue teams and humanitarian aid to the Kingdom of Morocco. After the preparations made by Algeria yesterday, the Moroccan Foreign Ministry informed the Algerian consul in Dar al Baida that there is no need for Algeria's aid. This came as the death toll in Morocco's earthquake has passed 2,800 people as a limited number of foreign aid and rescue teams joined an intensifying race against time to find any remaining survivors high in the Atlas Mountains, where many villages remained inaccessible. Algeria has started delivering humanitarian aid to Libya following the storm that hit the country, killing thousands of people and injuring many others. This came following instructions of the President of the Republic and in response to the request of the Libyan President of the Presidential Council, Mohammed Youssef El-Menfi. 8 aircrafts of the Army's air forces will carry foodstuffs, medicines, clothes and tents to Libya as of today, Tuesday. Earlier, Algeria offered her sincere condolences and expressed her deep compassion with Libya following the torrential rains and floods that hit the country. The Algerian Foreign Ministry expressed Algeria's willingness to support the Libyans and help them in the mitigation of the effects of this natural disaster. Algeria expressed its full readiness to be alongside the Libyan brothers and to grant them aid and assistance. And up to 3,000 people have died and 10,000 others are reported missing after massive floods caused by Storm Danielle which struck eastern Libya. Asia Bakar has more details in this report.
Libya's Red Crescent spokesman Tawfiq Shoukry said on Tuesday that 2,100 people are confirmed dead, while the number of missing people is hitting 10,000 so far. Some 20,000 people have been displaced, according to estimates. In the capital, Tripoli, the Prime Minister of the Government of National Unity, Abdelhamid Dbeiba, announced on Tuesday that a plane carrying 14 tons of supplies and medical personnel is headed to Benghazi to help, although there are still difficulties entering the hardest-hit city of Derna. The country's eastern region has been declared a disaster zone after the flooding. On Monday, Storm Danielle swept over eastern Libya, causing 2 dams on the Wadi Derna River to burst and send millions of cubic meters of water downstream to inundate the river plain hitting Derna. Apartment blocks partially collapsed and a seafront bridge was washed away as tons of water rushed to the sea. It's worth noting that several countries and organizations have offered their aid to disaster-hit Libya, including Algeria, Turkey, Italy, the EU, among others.
Meanwhile, the head of Libya's Tripoli-based unity government, Abdul Hamid Dbeiba, declared on Monday a three-day national mourning for the victims of the deadly floods that ravaged the country. Speaking during a cabinet meeting in Tripoli, Dbeiba said flags will be flown at half-mast on all public buildings during the mourning period. The Arab Parliament has called on Arab countries to grant Libya the necessary aid following the floods caused by the storm Daniel. The Arab Parliament stressed the importance of pooling Arab and international efforts to offer the Libyan state the required aid that allows it to continue its rescuing operations to the people in need. Now, the Minister of Communication, Mohamed Lagab, has met with the President of the Italian Council of State, Luigi Mariotti, on the sidelines of the closing of the international training program between the Ministry of Relations with Parliament and the Italian Council of State here in Algiers. Asia Bakar has more details.
The Minister of Communication indicated that Algeria is in the process of issuing new laws that regulate the information sector, stressing that these laws aim to regulate the profession, increase professionalism, ban monopoly, and provide legal protection for journalists. Mr. Lagab also stressed that the new legislation will pave the way for the creation of an audiovisual regulatory authority and another authority regulating the printed and digital press. For his part, the President of the Italian Council of State inquired about the media legislation in Algeria and the organization of the information sector before making a presentation on the Italian experience in this field, notably the media monopolization and its repercussions. He also expressed his country's will to share its experience with Algeria in terms of media regulation and training within the framework of strengthening relations between Algeria and Italy.
To the Western Sahara file now, the President of the Sahrawi Republic and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, has had talks in New York with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Asia Bakar develops.
The news agency SBS says that the discussions, which are part of the continuing dialogue between the two parties, focused on a series of issues of common concern, and notably the prospects set for a reactivation of the peace process initiated by the UN. In this respect, President Ghali recalled the circumstances that led the two parties at issue, namely the Polisario Front and Morocco, to agree to the UN-AU settlement plan unanimously adopted by the UN Security Council in 1991. The Sahrawi president informed the UN chief about the obstacles that hampered the implementation of the plan, which is aimed at allowing the Sahrawi people, like all other occupied peoples, to exercise self-determination and independence. He reiterated the Sahrawi party's rejection of the international community's silence over the serious practices and provocation carried out in the occupied Sahrawi territories with the UN mission's knowledge. The UN Secretary General, for his part, reiterated the attachment of the UN to the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and its commitment to carry on its action in conformity with the UN decisions. He said he hoped the efforts deployed by his personal envoy to Western Sahara would culminate in a lasting solution to the conflict. In another development, the incomplete Western Sahara's decolonization will be at the center of a conference to be held tomorrow in Geneva. The meeting, organized by the Group of Support for Western Sahara, will bring together experts, diplomats, and parliamentarians.
And now, 23 Palestinians have been arrested during an operation carried out by the Israeli army in various parts of the West Bank. The operation targeted the towns of Jenin, Tulkarem, Nablus, and Hebron. The news agency Wafa stressed that the Palestinian population continued to be regularly targeted by the acts of aggression and intimidation carried out by the Israeli forces. Meanwhile, scores of Jewish settlers assaulted the Al-Aqsa Mosque esplanade amid a reinforced security imposed by the Israeli occupying authorities on the Palestinian population. The UN Security Council's members have reiterated their support to the UN peace process initiated by the UN to pave the way for a settlement of the lingering conflict in Yemen. Albania's ambassador to the UN, whose country currently ensures the Council's presidency, pointed out that the Council's members stressed the necessity to urgently launch an inter-Yemeni dialogue and the enforcement of a ceasefire in the country. His statement came in the wake of consultations held by the UN Security Council on the situation in Yemen. During the meeting, reports were made by the UN Special Envoy to Yemen, the Assistant Secretary General to the Humanitarian Affairs, as well as by the head of the UN mission. And the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Aid, OSGH, has affirmed that the conflict in Sudan has forced about 5.3 million people to flee their homes on account of the violent clashes raging between the government and the Rapid Support paramilitary forces. According to the UN, 4.1 million Sudanese have been displaced inside the country, whereas over 1 million others sought refuge in the neighboring countries. And with this last piece of news, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Time now for a reminder of the major headlines. Algeria has started delivering humanitarian aid to Libya following the storm that hit the neighboring country, killing thousands of people and injuring many others. In Libya, the government of national unity has declared a 3-day national mourning following the floods that killed more than 3,000 people in the eastern part of the country. And the president of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, has had talks in New York with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the reactivation of the UN-sponsored peace process, among other things. And with this last piece of news, we come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Thank you for watching. Time now for a weekly program, The Health Magazine, devoted today to a health issue that is going to be detailed for you. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin in English. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Algeria International, and bye-bye for now. Hello and welcome to this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine, devoted this time to one of the common disorders that affect many people's reading, writing, and spelling capabilities. This disorder is commonly known under the name of dyslexia. So what is the definition of dyslexia? Dyslexia is a learning disorder that affects the people's ability to read, spell, write, and speak. Kids who suffer from it are often smart and hardworking, but they have troubles connecting the letters they see to the sounds those letters make. Also called reading disability, dyslexia affects areas of the brain that process language. About 5% to 10% of world's population have some symptoms of dyslexia, such as slow reading, trouble spelling, or mixing up words. Adults can have this learning disorder as well. Some people are diagnosed early in life, others don't realize they have dyslexia until they get older. Kids with dyslexia often have normal vision and are just as smart as their peers, but they struggle more in school because it takes them longer to read. Trouble processing words can also make it hard to spell, write, and speak clearly. What causes dyslexia? It's linked to genes, which is why the condition often runs in families. You're more likely to have dyslexia if your parents, siblings, or other family members have it. The condition stems from differences in parts of the brain that process language. Imaging scans in people with dyslexia show that areas of the brain that should be active when a person reads don't work properly. When children learn to read, they first figure out what sound each letter makes. Then they learn how to put those sounds in order to form words. Finally, they have to figure out what those words mean. For kids who have dyslexia, the brain has a hard time connecting letters to the sounds they make, and then blending those sounds into words. So to someone with dyslexia, the word cat might read as tak because of the mix-up. Reading can be a slow and difficult process. Dyslexia is different for everyone. Some people have a mild form that they eventually learn how to manage. Others have a little more trouble overcoming it. Even if children aren't able to fully outgrow dyslexia, they can still go to college and succeed in life. People with dyslexia have normal intelligence and usually have normal vision. Most children with dyslexia can succeed in school with tutoring or a specialized education program. Emotional support also plays an important role. Though there is no cure for dyslexia, early assessment and intervention result in the best outcome. Sometimes dyslexia goes undiagnosed for years and isn't recognized until adulthood, but it's never too late to seek help. Dyslexia can be broken down into different subtypes, but there is no official list of dyslexia types because they can be classified in different ways. However, the following categories are sometimes used. Phonological dyslexia. The person has difficulty breaking down words into smaller units, making it hard to match sounds with a written form. This is also known as dysphonetic dyslexia or auditory dyslexia. Surface dyslexia. The person cannot recognize a word by sight, making words hard to remember and learn. This is sometimes called dyseidetic dyslexia or visual dyslexia. Rapid naming deficit. The person cannot quickly name a letter or number when they see it. Double deficit dyslexia. The person finds it hard to isolate sounds, also to name letters and numbers. Visual dyslexia. The person has an unusual visual experience when looking at words, although this can overlap with surface dyslexia. Sometimes people refer to directional dyslexia, meaning it is difficult to tell left from right. This is a common feature of dyslexia, but it is not a type. If a person has difficulty with math learning, the correct term for this is dyscalculia. It is not dyslexia. Now, what are the symptoms of dyslexia? Signs of dyslexia can be difficult to recognize before your child enters school, but some early clues may indicate a problem. Once your child reaches school age, your child's teacher may be the first to notice a problem. Severity varies, but the condition often becomes apparent as a child starts learning to read. Before school, signs that a young child may be at risk of dyslexia include late talking, learning new words slowly, problems forming words correctly, such as reversing sounds in words or confusing words that sound alike, problems remembering or naming letters, numbers, and colors, difficulty learning nursery rhymes or playing rhyming games. School age. Once your child is in school, dyslexia signs and symptoms may become more apparent, including reading well below the expected level for age, problems processing and understanding what he or she hears, difficulty finding the right word or forming answers to questions, problems remembering the sequence of things, difficulty seeing and occasionally hearing similarities and differences in letters and words, inability to sound out the pronunciation of an unfamiliar word, difficulty spelling, spending an unusually long time completing tasks that involve reading or writing, and avoiding activities that involve reading. Teens and adults. Dyslexia signs in teens and adults are similar to those in children. Some common dyslexia signs and symptoms in teens and adults include difficulty reading, including reading aloud, slow and labor-intensive reading and writing, problem spelling, avoiding activities that involve reading, mispronouncing names or words, or problems retrieving words, trouble understanding jokes or expressions that have a meaning not easy to understand from the specific word, such as piece of cake meaning easy, spending an unusually long time completing tasks that involve reading or writing, difficulty summarizing a story, trouble learning a foreign language, difficulty memorizing, difficulty doing math problems. Now, when to see a doctor. Though most of children are ready to learn reading by kindergarten or first grade, children with dyslexia often can't grasp the basics of reading by that time. Talk with your doctor if your child's reading level is below what's expected for his or her age, or if you notice other signs of dyslexia. When dyslexia goes undiagnosed and untreated, childhood reading difficulties continue into adulthood. Causes. Dyslexia tends to run in families. It appears to be linked to certain genes that affect how the brain processes reading and languages, as well as risk factors in the environment. What are the risk factors? Dyslexia risk factors include a family history of dyslexia or other learning disabilities, premature birth or low birth weight, exposure during pregnancy to nicotine, drugs, alcohol, or infection that may alter brain development in the fetus, individual differences in the parts of the brain that enable reading complications. Dyslexia can lead to a number of problems, including trouble learning because reading is a skill basic to most other school subjects. A child with dyslexia is at a disadvantage in most classes and may have trouble keeping up with peers. Social problems. Left untreated, dyslexia may lead to low self-esteem, behavior problems, anxiety, aggression, and withdrawal from friends, parents, and teachers. Problems as adults. The inability to read and comprehend can prevent a child from reaching his or her potential as a child grows up. This can have long-term educational, social, and economic consequences. Children who have dyslexia are at increased risk of having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD and vice versa. ADHD can cause difficulty sustaining attention as well as hyperactivity and impulsive behavior, which can make dyslexia harder to treat. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. Don't forget to join us next week on Radio Algeria International for a new edition with a new health subject to deal with.